News of what happened in the Divine Crucible spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major civilization knew that a human had faced the tests of divine authority and walked away unbroken. Within days, the Academy's communication systems overloaded with incoming transmissions. Some brought praise. Many brought threats. All brought change. Daehyun sat in the Academy's observation lounge, watching ships arrive and depart from the orbital station. The view showed the planet below, green and blue and beautiful, surrounded by the organized chaos of interstellar traffic. Hyejin sat beside him, working through reports on her datapad. 17 species have formally protested your continued enrollment, she said without looking up. But 23 have sent messages of support. 4 have asked if you would visit their homeworlds to speak about human philosophy, and 3 minor deities have apparently declared you an abomination and called for your execution. Just 3? Daehyun tried to joke, but it fell flat. How many species have actually withdrawn from the Academy? None yet, Hyejin admitted. The threats are political pressure. But if the Divine Concordat decides to escalate, that could change quickly. The lounge doors opened. Instructor Myung-hee entered along with a group of alien cadets Daehyun did not recognize. They represented 5 different species, all young, all looking nervous and determined. These cadets want to speak with you, Myung-hee explained. I think you should hear what they have to say. One of them stepped forward, a being that resembled a bipedal insect with iridescent wings. My name is Kivral. I am blessed by the Hive Eternal, granted psionic connection to my species' collective consciousness. Or at least I was. 3 days ago, I asked my patron deity a question I had never dared ask before. I asked why we needed divine blessing when species like humanity achieved so much without it. What happened? Daehyun asked. My patron went silent, Kivral said, his antenna drooping. For the first time in my life, I could not feel the Hive Eternal's presence. At first I panicked. But then I realized something. I was still alive, still thinking, still functioning. The divine blessing I thought was essential turned out to be optional. Another cadet spoke, this one a flowing mass of liquid contained in a force field. I am Yuresh. My species serves the Tidal Kings, beings of pure elemental force. We are taught that without their blessing, we would lose cohesion and dissolve. But after hearing what you did in the Crucible, I began to wonder. What if our dependence on the Tidal Kings was taught, not inherent? What if we convinced ourselves we needed them, because we never tried to exist without them? A third cadet, crystalline like the one Daehyun had seen during the scanner ceremony, spoke softly. I am Lumen. I still honor the shattered star that gave birth to my species, but I no longer believe I need to serve it to justify my existence. You showed that purpose can be self-determined. That freed me from obligations I never questioned before. Myung-hee placed a hand on Daehyun's shoulder. It's starting. Species across the galaxy are beginning to question divine authority, not in rebellion, in curiosity. They want to know if they can stand on their own, like humanity has always done. Is this a good thing? Daehyun asked, genuinely uncertain. I never wanted to destroy anyone's faith. If believing in their gods gives them comfort, who am I to take that away? You're not taking anything away, Kivral insisted. You're showing us that faith should be a choice, not a necessity. Some of us will choose to keep our divine connections. Others will experiment with independence. But now we know we have options. That's what you gave us, choice. Before Daehyun could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency protocols activated. Myung-hee's communicator lit up with urgent messages. Outside the observation window, space itself seemed to tear open as ships emerged from dimensions that should not connect to normal reality. They're here, Myung-hee said grimly. The Divine Concordat. And they brought their full strength. The fleet that appeared around the Academy station numbered in the thousands. Ships blessed by gods, powered by divine energy, crewed by the faithful. At the center of the formation, a massive structure materialized. It looked like a temple the size of a moon, radiating power that made every sensor in the station scream warnings. A transmission broadcast on all frequencies. The voice belonged to something far older and more powerful than the Covenant Master. This is the voice of the Divine Concordat. We come to address the heresy that has taken root at this academy. Surrender the human called Daehyun and those who support his blasphemy. Refuse, and we will consider this station in rebellion against cosmic order. Headmaster Taemon's voice responded immediately, broadcast from the Academy's command center. This academy has stood for 8,000 years as neutral ground for all species. We will not surrender students to external judgment, leave peacefully, or violate the treaties that established this institution. Treaties signed by mortals hold no authority over divine will. The voice replied, "We will give you 1 hour to comply. After that, we will take what we came for." The transmission ended. Chaos erupted throughout the station. Cadets from species aligned with the divine concordate rushed to pack their belongings, preparing to leave. Others, inspired by Daehyun's actions, gathered in groups to discuss resistance. The Academy's security forces scrambled to defensive positions, though everyone knew their weapons were useless against divine power. Daehyun stood at the observation window, watching the divine fleet position itself for attack. He felt strangely calm. This was his fault. His actions in the Crucible had forced the gods to respond. If he surrendered now, maybe the Academy would be spared. "Don't even think about it," Hyejin said, reading his expression. "If you surrender, you prove them right. You prove that self-made beings must eventually submit to divine authority. Everything you stood for in the Crucible becomes meaningless. But people will die," Daehyun argued. "The Academy will be destroyed. All because I refused to bow. All because you showed us we don't have to bow," Kivral corrected. "That's worth fighting for." Jiwoo entered the lounge carrying equipment. The engineering cadets are retrofitting the Academy's defense systems. It won't be enough to win, but we can hold out longer than they expect. Seokjin is coordinating with friendly species governments. Some are sending support fleets. "It won't matter," Daehyun said. "You can't fight gods with conventional weapons." "Maybe not," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see a figure materialize in the center of the lounge. It looked human but wrong in subtle ways, as if someone had built a human from memory without getting every detail correct. "But you can fight gods with knowledge they tried to erase." "Who are you?" Myung-hee demanded, moving protectively in front of the cadets. "I am Archive," the figure said, "representative of the predecessor civilization. We have been watching the situation develop with great interest. Your actions in the Divine Crucible released us from 7 million years of imprisonment. We owe you a debt." "The predecessors," Taemin breathed, entering the lounge with several council members. "You're real. The legends are true." Archive nodded. "We were the first civilization to achieve greatness without divine intervention. The gods saw us as a threat to their power structure, so they waged war against us. When they could not destroy us, they trapped us in temporal stasis, erasing us from galactic memory. We could only escape if another self-made species demonstrated the same independence. Humanity freed us. Then help us," Daehyun said. "Your technology must be millions of years beyond anything the Divine Fleet has. You could destroy them." "We could," Archive agreed, "but we will not. If we fight your battles for you, we become your new patrons. We replace one dependency with another. That is not freedom. That is trading masters." Frustration flared in Daehyun's chest. "Then why are you here? Just to watch us fail?" Archive smiled. "We are here to offer partnership, not patronage. We will give you access to predecessor technology, weapons, shields, dimensional drives, but you must use them yourselves. You must earn your survival, just as we earned ours 7 million years ago, just as humanity has earned everything it has achieved." "We don't know how to use your technology," Myung-hee protested. "Then learn quickly," Archive said. "You have 58 minutes before the Divine Concordate attacks. We will provide the tools. You must provide the will to use them." The predecessor manifested data terminals throughout the lounge, each one displaying incomprehensibly advanced technology. Alien cadets and human cadets alike rushed to study them, working together to understand systems built by a civilization that had vanished before most of their species even existed. Daehyun watched them work with a strange mixture of pride and terror. This was it, the moment that would define not just humanity's future, but the future of every species that chose independence over divine guidance. Win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. "Why did the gods really trap you?" Daehyun asked Archive quietly. "Was it just fear that you would undermine their authority?" Archive's expression grew distant. "The gods did not trap us out of fear. They trapped us out of necessity. You see, Daehyun, divine power does not come from nothing. It comes from faith, from worship, from billions of beings believing that gods are necessary. We proved that divinity was optional." The council chamber had transformed into something resembling a war room. Holographic displays covered every wall, showing the mysterious fleet in orbit, tracking divine manifestations across the galaxy, and monitoring thousands of incoming transmissions from worried planetary governments. The 12 council members stood around the central platform, and for the first time since the Academy's founding, they looked uncertain. Dae-hyun entered, flanked by Myung-hee and 2 security officers. Every eye in the room turned to him. He felt the weight of their stares, each species trying to understand what made him different, trying to see the flame the scanner had detected. Before anyone could speak, the largest holographic display flickered and changed. A figure appeared, humanoid in basic shape, but clearly alien in every other way. Its body seemed to be made of interlocking geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, the voice resonated on frequencies that made Dae-hyun's bones ache. "I am the Covenant Master," the figure announced. "Speaker for the Divine Concordat, representative of 47 blessed species and their patron deities. I come with a demand, not a request." Headmaster Taemin, an ancient being who had led the Academy for 3,000 years, stepped forward. His species resembled tall, slender trees with faces carved into their bark. "This Academy operates under the Treaty of Sovereign Education. No external power has authority over our students." "Your treaty is irrelevant," the Covenant Master replied. "The human called Dae-hyun represents a threat to the cosmic order. The Divine Concordat demands he be surrendered for proper evaluation by those who understand such matters." "Proper evaluation?" Myung-hee challenged, stepping beside Taemin. "You mean judgment by entities who fear what he represents." The Covenant Master's geometric patterns shifted into something resembling anger. "The gods do not fear. They maintain balance. They preserve the natural order. A flame that burns without divine source is an aberration. It must be understood, controlled, or extinguished." The bluntness of the threat sent murmurs through the council. Dae-hyun felt his hands clench into fists. He had spent his entire life being told humans were insignificant, that they contributed nothing to galactic civilization. And now suddenly he was important enough to threaten? "I volunteer," Dae-hyun said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "I'll go with him." "No," Taemin said immediately. "We do not surrender students to external judgment." "But if I don't go, the Academy suffers," Dae-hyun argued. "I heard the transmissions on the way here. 3 species are threatening to withdraw their funding. 5 more are pulling their cadets. The pressure will only increase. I won't let the Academy be destroyed because of me." Hyejin's voice came from the chamber entrance. She pushed past the guards, along with 3 other human cadets. "If Dae-hyun goes, we go with him." She was joined by Ji-woo, a stocky human with engineering expertise, and Seok-jin, who had been studying xenopolitics. "This is foolish," Velreth hissed. "You would willingly walk into the Divine Concordat's judgment? They could destroy you." "They could try," Ji-woo said calmly. "But we're humans. We're good at surviving things we shouldn't survive." The Covenant Master's image leaned forward. "If the human comes willingly, the Concordat will show mercy. We will evaluate him in the Divine Crucible, a sacred space where truth cannot hide. If he is truly blessed by something beyond gods, this will be revealed. If he is simply an anomaly, a scanner malfunction, he will be returned unharmed." No one believed the last part. Dae-hyun could see it in every face around the chamber. The Divine Crucible was famous throughout the galaxy as a place where challenges were issued to those who questioned divine authority. Few returned unchanged. Many did not return at all. "I need one condition," Dae-hyun said, looking directly at the Covenant Master's shifting geometric form. "My friends come with me. All humans who want to witness this. If I'm representing humanity, then humanity should be present." The Covenant Master considered this. "Acceptable. Witnesses change nothing. They will see the truth of the cosmic order. Perhaps it will teach the rest of your species humility." The transmission ended. Silence fell over the council chamber. Taemin approached Dae-hyun, his ancient face showing deep concern. "You understand what you are doing? The Divine Crucible is not simply a test. It is designed to break those who question the power structure. to make them submit or be destroyed. I understand, Daehyun said, but running away won't help. If the gods fear what the scanner detected, then they'll hunt me regardless. Better to face them directly. Myung-hee pulled Daehyun aside as the council began making arrangements. There's something you need to know about the Crucible. It doesn't test power. It tests belief. Every being who enters faces manifestations of their own doubts and fears. For species with divine patrons, they face the possibility that their gods might abandon them. But you? I don't have a god to lose. Daehyun finished. Exactly. Which means the Crucible will show you something else. Something about humanity itself. Whatever you see in there, remember what I told you earlier. The flame burns because we refuse to let it die. Not because we're strong, but because we're stubborn. 3 hours later, Daehyun and 5 other humans stood in the Academy's transport bay. Hyejin checked her equipment nervously. Jiwoo stretched his shoulders, preparing for potential conflict. Seokjin read files about the Divine Crucible on his datapad, trying to find any advantage. A 4th human, a young woman named Sohee who had returned to education after living a full century on Earth, sat in calm meditation. You know, Sohee said without opening her eyes, I've seen a lot in my long life. Humanity went from primitive computers to starships in my lifetime. We went from wondering if we were alone to standing among thousands of species. But this might be the most important moment I've witnessed. Why? Daehyun asked. Sohee opened her eyes. They were bright with ancient wisdom. Because for the first time, we're not asking permission to exist. We're not trying to prove we deserve to be here. We're simply standing and saying this is what we are, accept it or don't. The transport ship arrived, sleek and black, radiating power that made every scanning device in the bay scream warnings. The Covenant Master did not appear personally. Instead, servitor beings gestured for the humans to board. The ship's interior was wrong in ways that hurt to perceive, angles that should not connect, spaces that seemed larger inside than outside. The journey to the Divine Crucible took 3 days through dimensional pathways that normal physics could not explain. During that time, the humans were isolated in a holding chamber, given food and water but no information. Daehyun spent the time talking with his companions, learning about their lives, understanding what drove them to volunteer for this insanity. When they finally arrived, the Divine Crucible appeared as a pocket dimension floating in absolute void. It looked like a massive crystalline arena. Walls that pulsed with divine energies from 1,000 different pantheons. Around the central chamber, massive beings watched from elevated platforms. Gods or their avatars, representatives from the divine concordat, entities that existed beyond normal comprehension. The Covenant Master's voice echoed through the space. Daehyun, human, bearer of the supposed flame beyond gods. You stand before the Divine Crucible. Here you will face 3 tests. The test of origin, the test of purpose, and the test of power. Each will reveal the truth of what you are. Each will show whether you are truly beyond divine order or simply a scanner error given too much attention. Daehyun stepped forward into the central arena. The crystal floor beneath his feet showed reflections of countless beings who had stood here before. Some had passed. Most had not. Begin, the Covenant Master commanded. The arena shifted. Reality bent. Daehyun found himself standing in a vast library that stretched infinitely in all directions. Shelves contained books, crystals, memory stones, and devices he could not name. Each one represented the recorded origin of a species, their connection to their divine patron. A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. Test of origin. Prove your lineage. Show your connection to that which created you. Commune with your patron and demonstrate your worthiness. Around the arena, other beings who were being tested simultaneously began to glow. A Velcrin cadet called out to the Voidwalkers and shadows answered. A crystal being sang to the memory of the shattered star, and light responded. Each candidate connected to something greater, proving their divine heritage. Daehyun stood in the center of the library alone with only his thoughts. He had no patron to call, no divine force to answer. He was human, and humanity had always been alone. But that was not quite true, was it? I come from primordial soup, Daehyun said, his voice steady in the infinite library. From random chemical reactions in ancient seas, from blind evolution with no purpose, from cosmic chance that should have failed 1,000,000 times but didn't, from ancestors who looked at extinction and said, not today, from generations who built civilization from nothing but stubbornness and stone tools. The library shook. Books fell from shelves. The divine observers leaned forward in confusion. I don't have a patron, Daehyun continued. I don't have a cosmic benefactor. I have 4 billion years of life refusing to surrender. I have ancestors who survived ice and fire and plague. I have a species that split atoms without magic, that reached the stars with chemical rockets. The library shattered into fragments of light and reformed into something new. Daehyun stood in a vast chamber where pathways stretched in every direction, each one glowing with purpose. He could see other candidates walking their assigned paths, following roads laid out by their divine patrons. A Velcrin walked the path of shadows, fulfilling the purpose assigned by the Voidwalkers. A crystalline being danced along the path of preservation, maintaining memories as their creator star had commanded. Every path had a destination. Every destination had been chosen by something greater than the individual walking it. This was the test of purpose. The voice returned, different now but still carrying absolute authority. Demonstrate your divine purpose. Show the role assigned to you by that which is greater. Prove you serve a function in the cosmic order. Daehyun watched the other candidates follow their glowing paths. They moved with certainty, with the comfort of knowing their place in the universe. He stood at a crossroads where no path glowed, where no direction had been chosen for him. I don't have an assigned purpose, Daehyun said to the empty air. No god told me what to do with my life. No cosmic force gave me a role to play. Then you are purposeless, the voice responded. Without divine guidance, you are chaos, random, meaningless. No, Daehyun said firmly. I'm free. The word echoed through the chamber like thunder. Several of the divine observers on their elevated platforms shifted uncomfortably. The concept seemed to disturb them on a fundamental level. Humanity's purpose, Daehyun continued, is to decide our own purpose. We look at the universe and choose what we want to contribute. Some of us build. Some of us explore. Some of us create art or music or new ideas. But we choose. Every single human decides for themselves what their life means. The chamber trembled. Cracks appeared in the glowing pathways. Some of the other candidates stumbled as their assigned routes flickered and destabilized. This is heresy, the Covenant Master's voice boomed across the arena. Purpose cannot be self-determined. Order requires structure. Structure requires authority. Without divine assignment, there is only chaos. Then call me chaos, Daehyun challenged. Call humanity chaos. We'll wear it proudly. Because our chaos built civilizations. Our chaos reached the stars. Our chaos refused to bow to anything we didn't choose to respect. The test of purpose collapsed, not because Daehyun had passed it, but because he had rejected the question itself. The divine beings watching began to argue among themselves, their voices creating storms of conflicting energies. The pocket dimension shook with their disagreement. Reality shifted again. The chamber disappeared. Daehyun found himself standing in an empty void. Across from him, something began to materialize. A figure formed from pale light, humanoid in shape but wrong in every detail. It knelt, head bowed, hands clasped in eternal prayer. When it looked up, its face was blank except for eyes that held nothing but absolute devotion. I am the eternal servant, the figure said in a voice like wind through empty halls. I am faith made manifest. Submission made beautiful. I am what all beings should aspire to become. I am peace through surrender. Daehyun understood immediately. This was the test of power, but not the way he had expected. He was not being asked to fight something stronger. He was being shown the alternative to his existence. The peace of accepting one's place, the comfort of serving something greater, the serenity of faith. Look at me, the eternal servant said, standing slowly. I have no doubt. No fear, no struggle. I know my place in the cosmic order. I serve the divine will perfectly. I am content. You're a slave, Daehyun said. I am devoted, the servant corrected. There is a difference. Slavery implies resistance. I have no resistance. I have only love for that which guides me. Can you say the same? Can you claim to love your purposeless existence, your cosmic isolation? Your species' lonely journey through an uncaring universe? The words struck deeper than physical blows. Because they were partially true. Humanity's history was filled with loneliness, with the fear that they were alone, with the desperate search for meaning in a universe that seemed indifferent to their existence. We are alone, Daehyun admitted. We always have been. No gods spoke to us. No cosmic forces guided us. We looked up at the stars and saw only emptiness looking back. Then surrender, the Eternal Servant said gently, extending a hand. Accept divine guidance. Let the gods shape your purpose. Find peace in submission. You will never be alone again. For a moment, Daehyun felt the temptation. How easy it would be to accept. To let something greater carry the burden of choice. To never again wonder if humanity was on the right path, because someone else would decide the path for them. He thought of Earth. Of generations who had struggled without guidance. Who had made terrible mistakes because they had no divine wisdom to prevent them. Who had fought wars over whose guess about the universe was correct. Who had suffered through plague and famine with no cosmic intervention to save them. But he also thought of what they had built. Democracy created by humans arguing about the best way to live together. Science developed by humans testing their own guesses against reality. Art created by humans expressing their unique perspectives. Love shared between humans who chose each other without divine arrangement. No, Daehyun said, and the word came from somewhere deep in his chest, not from his mind. From that flame the scanner had detected. I don't want your peace. I don't want your certainty. I don't want to be guided by something I didn't choose to follow. Then you choose struggle, the servant said. You choose doubt. You choose the possibility of failure. Yes, Daehyun agreed. Because I also choose the possibility of success that I earned myself. The possibility of finding meaning that I created. The possibility of love that I chose freely. You can keep your divine peace. Humanity will keep its messy, uncertain, terrifying freedom. The Eternal Servant's blank face showed something that might have been sadness, or perhaps envy. You will never know if you made the right choice. You will never have certainty. I know, Daehyun said, and that's exactly why our choices matter. He took a step forward, not to attack, but simply to move past the servant. To reject the offer by walking away from it. The Eternal Servant did not try to stop him. It simply knelt again, returning to its eternal prayer, content in its submission. The void shattered. Daehyun found himself back in the central arena of the divine crucible. The crystal floor beneath him was cracked. Around the arena, the divine observers were in chaos. Some argued violently in languages that hurt to hear. Others sat in stunned silence. The Covenant Master's geometric form flickered and destabilized. Hyejin and the other humans rushed forward from the observation area where they had been forced to watch. What happened? Hyejin asked. The whole place started breaking apart. I failed their tests, Daehyun said, but he was smiling. Or passed them. I'm not sure which. The Covenant Master's voice cut through the chaos, but it sounded different now, strained. This is impossible. The Crucible has never responded this way. You rejected divine authority. You rejected cosmic purpose. You rejected the peace of submission. And yet you stand. The Crucible should have destroyed you. Maybe, Daehyun suggested. Your Crucible was designed to test people who have something to lose. I don't have a patron to disappoint. I don't have a divine purpose to fail. I don't have faith that can be broken. All I have is myself, and you can't take that away. One of the divine observers, a massive entity that resembled a star given consciousness, spoke in a voice that made the pocket dimension tremble. The human speaks truth that disturbs us. If beings can achieve greatness without divine blessing, what purpose do we serve? If mortals can define their own meaning, why do they need gods at all? Another divine being, this one appearing as shifting water in a vaguely humanoid shape, responded. This is why the human must be contained. His existence threatens the faith of trillions. Already reports come from across the galaxy. Species question their devotion. Young beings ask why they need patrons. The cosmic order destabilizes. Good, a familiar voice said. Instructor Myung-hee had somehow entered the Crucible, along with Headmaster Taemin and several Academy instructors. Maybe it's time for the cosmic order to evolve. The Covenant Master turned toward them. You dare interrupt divine judgment? I dare interrupt a rigged trial, Myung-hee shot back. You brought Daehyun here to break him, to force him to submit or be destroyed. But your Crucible proved something you didn't expect. It proved that self-made beings are incompatible with divine hierarchy. Not because they're weaker, because they're fundamentally different. Taman stepped forward, his ancient presence commanding attention. The Treaty of Sovereign Education grants students the right to face challenges without permanent harm. You promised Daehyun would be returned unharmed if he proved to be a scanner error. He has completed your 3 tests. Fulfill your promise. The Covenant Master's form flickered violently. For a moment, something else showed through the geometric patterns. Something that looked almost human. A face filled with anguish and rage and desperate hope. Free us, the Covenant Master whispered, the words barely audible. Then his form solidified again, returning to cold authority. The human? The High Council chamber was a circular room carved from a single piece of ancient stone that predated most civilizations in the galaxy. 12 seats arranged in a ring, each occupied by a representative of the Academy's founding species. At the center of the circle, a holographic display flickered with data about the scanner incident, replaying the moment when it had identified Daehyun as something unprecedented. Instructor Velreth paced in front of the display, his tail lashing in agitation. The archives have no record of this classification, he said, his voice carrying the weight of genuine concern. I have personally searched texts dating back 4 million years. The phrase flame beyond gods appears nowhere in any known database. One of the council members, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix, spoke in tones that resonated like wind chimes. The scanner last produced an unmeasurable reading 7 million years ago. The records from that era are incomplete, lost during the fall of the predecessors. The predecessors, another council member repeated, this one resembling a mass of tentacles surrounding a pulsing central brain, a civilization that vanished without explanation at the height of their power. Should we be concerned that the scanner connects this human to that era? Velreth stopped pacing. We should be concerned about everything related to this. The scanner does not make errors. If it says the human carries something beyond divine classification, then we must determine what that means and whether it poses a threat. In his isolation chamber, Daehyun had lost track of time. The white walls reflected nothing, absorbed nothing, and the suppression fields created a strange pressure against his skin. He had tried sleeping but found himself restless. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt that sensation again. The feeling of being watched by something impossibly distant. The door finally opened. A human woman entered, older than most cadets, wearing the insignia of a xenoanthropologist. Daehyun recognized her from orientation. Instructor Myung-hee, one of only 3 human staff members in the entire academy. How are you holding up? Myung-hee asked, pulling up a chair across from him. She carried a datapad but did not look at it. Confused, Daehyun admitted. Scared, maybe. I don't understand what happened. Neither does anyone else, Myung-hee said, which is why I asked to speak with you. The council is going through ancient texts, consulting with scholars across the galaxy, but I thought we might try a different approach. What approach? Talking, Myung-hee said simply. You're human, Daehyun. So am I. We understand our own species better than any alien scholar ever could. So let me ask you something. What makes humans different from every other species in this academy? Daehyun thought about it. We're weaker, slower, we don't have any special abilities. No psionics, no magic, no blessings from higher powers. True, Myung-hee agreed. But that's what we lack. What do we have? The question hung in the air. Daehyun struggled to find an answer that made sense. Stubbornness? Myung-hee smiled. Stubbornness, persistence, the refusal to accept when the universe says we should be dead. Do you know Earth's history, Daehyun? Really know it? Some of it. Then let me fill in the parts they don't teach in the academy. Myung-hee pulled up files on her datapad and projected them into the air. Images of Earth through different eras appeared between them. 70,000 years ago, a supervolcano nearly ended humanity. Our population dropped to less than 10,000 individuals. We should have gone extinct. But we didn't. She swiped to the next image. Ice ages that should have frozen us to death. Plagues that killed half our population. Wars that threatened to destroy everything we had built. And through all of it, humanity never stopped. Never surrendered. Never accepted that we had reached our limit. Daehyun watched the images shift. Primitive humans huddled around fires. Ancient cities rising from nothing. The first rockets reaching toward space. Every other species in this galaxy, Myung-hee continued, received their power from something external. The Velcrin were uplifted by the Void Walkers. The crystal beings were born from a dying star's last conscious thought. The energy entities were created by beings from a higher dimension. They were given their strength. Do you understand what I'm saying? They didn't earn it, Daehyun said slowly. Exactly. But humans? We clawed our way up from nothing. No one helped us. No gods guided us. No cosmic forces decided we were worthy of survival. We survived because we refused to die. We advanced because we refused to stop. Every single achievement humanity has ever made came from within us, not from some external source. Myung-hee leaned forward, her eyes intense. That's what the scanner detected, Daehyun. Not a blessing from something greater. Not a gift from the gods. It detected something that shouldn't exist according to the galactic power structure. A flame that burns on its own, that needs no fuel from higher powers, that exists because it refuses not to exist. Daehyun felt something click in his mind. The flame beyond gods. Beyond gods, Myung-hee repeated. Not blessed by them. Not created by them. Independent of them. Self-sustaining. Self-made. For species that have always relied on external power sources, that concept is terrifying. It suggests that divinity is not necessary for greatness, that worship and divine favor are not requirements for advancement. Is that why they're keeping me locked up? Because I'm a threat to their religious beliefs? Myung-hee shook her head. It's bigger than that. The entire power structure of the galaxy is built on the relationship between mortals and their divine patrons. Temples, priests, entire civilizations organized around pleasing their gods or cosmic benefactors. If word spreads that a human, a member of a null species, carries a flame that burns brighter than divine blessings, it could destabilize everything. Daehyun stood up and paced the small chamber. But I'm not special. I'm just one human. There's nothing extraordinary about me. You're right, Myung-hee said. You're not special. That's what makes this so significant. You're an ordinary human, which means every human carries the same flame. The scanner just happened to notice it in you, maybe because you were standing in the right position, maybe because some cosmic alignment made it more detectable. But the flame itself? That's not unique to you. It's humanity's inheritance. Before Daehyun could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed along the walls of the isolation chamber. Myung-hee's datapad lit up with urgent messages. What's happening? Daehyun asked. Myung-hee read the messages, her face growing pale. A fleet just arrived. Ships that no one recognizes, using technology that doesn't match any known civilization. They're broadcasting a message on all frequencies. What does it say? Myung-hee looked up from the datapad, and for the first time since entering the chamber, she looked genuinely frightened. They're asking to speak with the bearer of the flame beyond gods. They're saying they've been waiting 7 million years for this moment. The isolation chamber's suppression field suddenly failed. Power fluctuated throughout the entire station. In the moment of darkness, Daehyun felt something he had never experienced before. A presence, vast and old, pressing against his consciousness. Not threatening. Not hostile. Just aware. And in that moment of contact, Daehyun saw images that could not be his memories. He saw humans throughout history. Moments when they should have failed but didn't. A woman refusing to give up her seat on a bus, sparking a movement. A scientist working through countless failures to create a cure. A child taking their first steps despite falling again and again. Millions of moments across thousands of years, each one a small defiance of fate. The flame was not in him specifically. It was in all of them. In every human who had ever looked at an impossible situation and thought, I can do this anyway. The lights came back on. Myung-hee was speaking rapidly into her communicator. Outside the isolation chamber, Daehyun could hear running footsteps and shouted orders. The academy was in chaos. We need to get you to the council chamber, Myung-hee said urgently. They're demanding to see you immediately. Who is demanding? Everyone, Myung-hee said. The High Council wants answers. The mysterious fleet wants to meet you. And according to the latest reports, representatives from 12 different divine pantheons have manifested avatars throughout the galaxy. They all want to know the same thing. What? Myung-hee grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. They want to know if the age of gods is ending, and if a null species from a forgotten corner of space is the one who will end it. As they rushed through corridors filled with panicking cadets and grim-faced instructors, Daehyun realized that his life had fundamentally changed. He was no longer just a human trying to prove his species belonged among the stars. He had become a symbol of something far more dangerous, the possibility that greatness did not require gods at all. The line stretched for what seemed like miles inside the Great Hall of the Galactic Academy. Daehyun stood with his hands clasped behind his back, trying not to fidget as he watched hundreds of alien cadets ahead of him pass through the ancient scanner one by one. The massive device looked like a circular gateway made of crystal and metal that no one in the current era knew how to build. It had been standing here for thousands of years, measuring every new cadet who entered the academy. Around him, beings of every imaginable shape and size waited their turn. To his left stood a cadet with blue crystalline skin that refracted the light into rainbow patterns. To his right, a creature that looked like floating liquid metal shifted nervously in its containment field. Daehyun felt incredibly ordinary by comparison. Just a human in a standard gray uniform, brown eyes watching the proceedings with quiet fascination. The scanner worked the same way for everyone. A cadet would step through the gateway, stand still for exactly 3 seconds, and then the machine would announce their rating. The numbers ranged from 1 to 1,000, and they supposedly measured something called potential. Every species in the galaxy had it except apparently humans. At least that was what the Academy record said. Humans were null, empty, connected to nothing. Daehyun watched as a 4-armed reptilian cadet stepped through the scanner. The device hummed, glowed with pale blue light, and then spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Rating 847. Classification, touched by the Voidwalkers. Affinity, shadow and distance. The reptilian cadet walked out the other side looking proud. His classmates from the same species clicked their claws together in what Daehyun had learned was their version of applause. The next cadet went through, a being made entirely of crystalline facets that barely came up to Daehyun's knee. Rating 923. Classification, heir to the shattered star. Affinity, light and memory. The pattern continued. Each species had their own ancient patrons, gods, progenitors, cosmic entities that had blessed them long ago and continued to guide them. The Velkrin owed their existence to something called the Voidwalkers. The crystal beings traced their lineage to a star that had exploded with consciousness before dying. Every species had a story. Every species had a source, except humans. Daehyun's people had clawed their way up from primitive survival with nothing but determination and luck. No gods had spoken to them. No cosmic forces had shaped their evolution. They had simply refused to die when the universe seemed determined to kill them. Ice ages, plagues, wars, near extinctions. Humanity had survived it all through sheer stubborn persistence. The line moved forward. Daehyun was now only 20 cadets away from the scanner. His heart beat faster despite his attempt to stay calm. He knew what would happen. The scanner would process him, find nothing, and assign him a rating of 0 or perhaps just state null species, like it had for the 11 other humans who had gone through in previous years. It would be embarrassing, but he had expected it. A voice beside him made him turn, nervous. It was Heejin, another human cadet. She had arrived at the academy the same year as Daehyun, one of only 12 humans in a student body of thousands. She had kind eyes and a smile that seemed permanently fixed on her face as if she found the entire universe amusing. Not really, Daehyun lied. You? Terrified, Heejin admitted cheerfully. But in an exciting way. I mean, we already know what it will say about us. No surprises, right? Right, Daehyun agreed. But something in his chest felt tight. He could not explain why. The line moved faster now. 10 cadets away, 5, 3. Daehyun could see the scanner up close now. The crystal surface was covered in markings that hurt to look at directly. Symbols that seemed to shift when he was not focusing on them. The gateway thrummed with power that made his teeth ache. 2 cadets away. 1. Then it was Heejin's turn. She shot Daehyun a quick grin and stepped through the gateway. The scanner hummed, glowed, and then announced, rating, null, species, human, classification, no patron detected. Affinity, none. Heejin walked through looking unbothered. She gave Daehyun a thumbs up, a human gesture most aliens found confusing. Then it was his turn. Daehyun stepped up to the scanner. His legs felt steady even though his pulse pounded in his ears. He walked through the gateway and stopped in the center, just like everyone before him. The crystal hummed. The light grew brighter. 3 seconds passed, then 3 more. The humming changed pitch. It grew louder, deeper, resonating in Daehyun's bones. The light shifted from blue to white to something else entirely, a color that did not exist in normal space. Around the hall, conversation stopped. Instructors looked up from their data pads. Even the cadets who had already been processed turned to stare. The scanner's voice returned, but it sounded different now. Older, as if the machine had been asleep and had suddenly woken up. Rating, unmeasurable. Species, human. Classification, bearer of the flame beyond gods. Silence crashed through the great hall like a physical force. Daehyun stood frozen inside the gateway. He did not understand what had just happened. Bearer of the flame beyond gods? What did that even mean? Humans did not have flames. Humans did not have gods. They did not have anything. An instructor rushed forward, a tall being covered in scales and wearing the purple robes of the Academy's High Council. "Step out of the scanner immediately," the instructor commanded. His voice shook slightly. Daehyun obeyed, walking through the other side of the gateway on legs that felt numb. The moment he cleared the scanner, 20 more instructors surrounded him. Questions flew from every direction in a dozen different languages, most of which Daehyun did not speak. His translation implant struggled to keep up. "What do you feel? Has this happened before? Are you connected to something?"
Can you sense any entities?
Daehyun shook his head to all of it. "I don't feel any different. I don't know what the scanner meant. There must be a mistake." But even as he said it, he knew it was not true. The ancient scanner had never made a mistake. Not in thousands of years of operation. Not once in recorded history. Instructor Velrith, the reptilian who had ordered Daehyun out of the scanner, stared at him with eyes that held suspicion and something else. Fear, maybe. "Take him to Isolation Chamber 7, Velrith said to the other instructors. "Contact the High Council immediately. No one speaks of this until we understand what we are dealing with." As guards escorted Daehyun away from the Great Hall, he caught a glimpse of Hyejin's face in the crowd. She looked worried but also intensely curious. Other human cadets wore similar expressions. They did not understand this any better than he did. The isolation chamber turned out to be a small white room with walls that hummed with suppression fields. Technology designed to block psionic energy, magical interference, divine connection. Daehyun sat on the single chair in the center of the room and waited. Hours passed. No one came to explain. No one came to release him. He tried to remember if he had ever felt anything unusual. Any voices in his head, any supernatural experiences, any moments where reality seemed to bend. Nothing. His life had been completely ordinary. He had grown up on Earth, studied hard, applied to the Academy to prove humanity belonged among the stars, and been accepted. That was all. So why had the scanner called him a bearer of the flame beyond gods? And why, in the silence of the isolation chamber, did Daehyun suddenly feel like something vast and ancient was watching him from very far away? Deep in the void between galaxies, where no light had shone for billions of years, something stirred. Sensors that had been dormant for eons flickered to life. A signal pulsed outward, traveling faster than light through dimensions that normal ships could not access. The message was simple: the first flame in 7 million years. The cycle may finally break, and Armada began to move.